Good evening. Hand for tonight is 10-8 of clubs. So villain 3 is going to limp. He's playing 33% of hands right now, 6% pre-flop raise. I have 70 hands on him right now. So, if we were just to kind of put together a somewhat range, wider range, I think what we can do is kind of take out these premiums. I know that's not a whole lot, but it doesn't look like he raises a whole lot. So from MP, he's playing about 22%. So let's kind of take out some of our hands. Maybe ace 8. It's 23.7, maybe a little wide. We don't know about these one gappers here, but I think that's his range. And when we look at my range here, my range in this situation is going to be the cutoff, and it doesn't really change in terms of what I'm going to open raise with. It's a limper. He's going to be pretty weak, and I think I'm just going to probably still just raise this type of range. I'm not going to adjust as much. I think perhaps if I think he's going to limp and then fold a lot, then I can open a little bit wider, especially with like a kings, suited kings, maybe more of the offsuit aces, because having an ace or having a king makes it less likely that they have those big hands. Here I have 40%, so 2 out of 5. He's limped 5 times and folded 2 when someone raised. So, it's a possibility that if I raise, then he's just going to fold. So I think this is a hand to do that with and try to isolate. Definitely when you look at the people behind us, small blind looks to be a little bit looser. Big blinds, the button's tight. We don't know anything about the big blind because this is his first hand at the table. So I raised, and then the big blind calls, and the question is, what is big blind calling here? I think all we can do is just kind of look at standard calls. Hands that would call in this place and not raise. So we'll take out queens plus ace king. That's kind of a tight calling range. Just kind of depends on what's standard. So this is a 5 NL game, which I think usually means that players are going to be a little bit more likely to call a little bit wider. So they may be calling something like this at almost 30%. And so when you see my range versus his range, I'm definitely ahead of both of these players. And now villain 3-fold, so let's get it out. And now I raised, and now we have big blind caller. And what's going to be our plan here? So our plan is based on what he's playing with. So we know we have range equity. We have big hands. We have aces. We have kings in our range. We have ace king. We don't have the ace in our hand. So if an ace falls, there is a decent chance that if we bet and he calls, then he might have that ace. Definitely, we're going to be afraid of big cards, ace, king, queen, especially if 2 of them come out there. It's going to be a high likelihood that he's connected and he's not going to give up to a Cbet. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So the board comes out queen high, 4 of hearts. So queen 4, 5 of diamonds. And I'm going to expect him to check, which he does. And we don't have anything. So the question is, do we think, if we Cbet, do we think he's going to fold? So in other words, is this a good flop for us to Cbet with? Or is this something that we should just say, you know what, let's just let's just check behind and take it down. Obviously, if we're going to be betting, we're really betting just as the bluff. We don't have backdoor flush draw. We really don't have a strong backdoor straight draw. We're just going off of a bluff. And, for this 30% range, approximately 30% range that he was calling with, this is just kind of like it's not an entirely, Broadway board, all Broadways, but it is kind of like you got one big card, two small cards, which I think if we bet and this player's a looser player, he's going to be calling a lot. I think he's going to be calling at least 30% of the time. I'm sorry, he's calling at least 60% of the time, 65% of the time. If he's a tighter player, I still think he's continuing 40% of the time. So versus an unknown, we could kind of bet just to kind of see what type of player we're playing against. But if we know him to be somewhat of a tight player, then it's probably best just to check and be done with the hand. It's too likely that he's connected in some way, be it a possible straight draw, gut shot, heart draw, queen. I mean, some of these players, some of the looser players, are going to call with jacks and tens and nines and eights and sevens. So, what did he do? He checked it, and I think he checks his entire range, and then it's on us. So, based on this board, what do I think we can bet? So, I do think we can bet all of our top pairs. I think we can bet our flush draws. Maybe not all of our flush draws. I think we could check with some of the flush draws, some of the ones that are only the flush draws. So like I'd bet 6-5, 7-6 of hearts, because like the 7-6 of hearts, you have flush draw and the open and straight draw. I think you have a lot of equity when called. I think we could bet some of the gut shots as bluffs. 2-card backdoor flushes, diamonds, maybe. So let's kind of set up what our value range is and what our bluffing range is. So top pair plus, definitely for value. I think our bluffing range includes these. So gut shots, open-ended straight draws, flush draws. I also think 2-card backdoor flush draws are bluffing cards. Flush draw and pair, some of those, I think by and large are kind of bluffing. We don't have a whole lot of them, but those are definitely bluff ranges. I also think we could probably bluff with this pocket pair below the top card. And that means we're continuing with about 56.5% of the hands, and we're at about 2/3 bluff, 1/3 value. Some of these pocket pairs below the top cards could be value, so like jacks and tens could be value hands if, pocket nines or pocket eights calls here. So I think this is probably going to be my betting range. All other hands, I'm just going to check. I'm not going to have any sort of strong checking range behind, and it's probably bad, but on this board, I think there's so many different hands that could call, especially with his calling range, that I don't think we need to have I don't think we need to check pocket queens or check ace queen just to protect our checks. I think we make more money by being aggressive here. So I bet, and I don't like it. As I just said, this is a no-made hand for us. We don't have any backdoor potential. I think by betting here, we have too wide of betting range. And especially we bet half pot, 2/3 pot is probably what we should have been betting here. 2/3, I think, is more representative of the queen, and then we follow it up with a bigger bet on the turn if we were going to go that route. But again, we don't have any backdoor equity, and I think firing a double barrel on this board versus a player that's kind of loose like this, we should, or my assumption is that he's looser, is that we should just check behind with 10-8. So he calls. What would a player like this, if he's playing 30%, what is he going to call with top pair plus? We'll say these pocket pair below top cards are going to call Flush draws calling, open into straight draws, gut shots. These we'll give him, any of these pairs. Yeah, I take that back. We're not gonna go that crazy. We'll say 44.2%. He calls. We see a turn of a 7 diamonds, and he checks again. So I'm not too surprised. This is actually kind of interesting because with our range, I think we continue firing top pair plus, right? Because again, I think any heart draw is going to be calling here. Any queen's going to be calling. 6-7 just now hit a pair. They're going to be calling. 5-6, your pair with your now just hitting open ended straight draw. The diamonds, any diamonds are going to call. So I think we're going to see a lot more calls than folds. So I think we're going to be betting top pair for value. I think flush draws. Are we going to do all flush draws? Yeah, I still think we're going to be betting. What about open-ended straight draws? Definitely the ace-3. What about ace-6? Probably 2. Are we going to do the gut shots? I don't think so. So I think here we're looking at about half bluff, half value. I think that kind of looks like a decent type of balance. And you could see with this range and his calling range, his range versus his all of his hands at this point, we have advantage. Now, if he calls, then I think he's calling top pair plus and then the draws. So, if we bet with that and he calls, then we still have advantage, equity advantage. Unfortunately, I didn't bet here, which you could say is a good thing, but again, we bet too much on the flop by including this hand in our range. We should have just checked it. And then the 2 hearts gets there. So now that's a situation where if he checks, I think we check behind. And we'll say, if we bet and he calls, let's do that. Let's say we bet, he calls, and now that hits his range. So if he checks, the question is, what is he going to check with? Possibly the middle pair, pocket pair below second pair. Top pair, I think, is going to check. 2 pairs probably going to check. I do think a flush is going to bet. I think the heart's going to bet and hope to get, hope to get called, because they're going to want to see value. They don't want to check and see it get checked behind. So if he does that, then you can see that we should be ahead of his checking range. And then it comes down to us. Okay, what if we bet? What do we think is going to get called? I think we bet our flush. I think we bet our straight. I think we bet our sets. Over pair, I don't think so. So I think if we bet our flushes and straights, he's going to call with the straight. He's going to call with the sets. He'll probably call with the top pair. So let's say he checks and calls with those. And we bet, oops. Let's take those out. And we just bet sets plus. You can see that we're going to be 90%. We'll get called by worse. What if we have over pairs? We're still 82%. We're still heavy. If we add top pairs, he's still calling, I think, with enough worse, with those top pairs, that I guess we can justify a call. Now, as played, he checks to us. And as played, it kind of comes down to, okay, if we bet, what do we think he's going to call us with? So if we bet, I do think he's going to be calling top pair plus. I think once we checked, he may even call with any of these pairs, just in case that we may be bluffing. So at pocket pair, below top pair, let's say that's his calling range. What should we bet to see value? Top pair plus. pocket pair below top pair. That's our limit. So should we do it with all of our top pair? I don't think so. Uh, I think ace queen we could call because king queen queen jack would call us. But with queen 10, I think if we're getting called, then we're behind. And I think this is the part that's selling. So the pocket pair below top pair. If we bet top pair and he calls with top pair plus, then it's like 50-50. If he calls us, he's going to win 50% of the time. So if we get rid of top pair, then it comes back to when we bet and he calls, we're going to win 65% of the time. That's, I think, some thin value. So over pair plus is probably going to get some value here. I hope I check. I'm glad I checked because we took our stab on the flop, which was a mistake. And then we just gave up. So no point in trying to bet and then hope he's going to fold. What does he show? He shows pocket nines. So we had pocket nines in his range. I don't think he was going to bet that. I do think if we bet the turn, he's probably going to fold. But we needed to fire 2 barrels to get that going, and we bet half pot on the flop. I think we needed to increase it to 2/3, get him to fold. I think once we check the turn, I don't think he's ever folding the nines at that point. So glad I checked behind. All right, so let me go ahead and update these ranges. So just kind of fill out. Let's clear that. So my pre-flop range here. Just kind of fill this in. All right, that is 20%. 20% of hands. We have 270 combos. Villain has this range. And 388 combos. Flop came down queen 4 of hearts and 5 of diamonds. So flop was queen of hearts, 5 of diamonds, 4 of hearts. At this point, let's do our pass-throughs. Remove those. My equities range is 54.3 and his is 45.7. As played, I would plan to bet these hands. That represents 56.5% with 140 combos in my range. This player is calling with that range, and that's 44.2% of hands or 155 combos. 7 diamonds hits the turn. So 7 diamonds, and at this point, we didn't have a bet, so we are looking at my equities range is 55.0 and their equities range is 45.0. So I'm still ahead. My range doesn't constrict at all. So this is still 100% of my range. Total number of combos is 33. Or 133, sorry. And then their range is still 100% of their range. And they have 150 combos. And then 2 of hearts falls. Whoops. 2 hearts. Yep, we don't have filters on, so my range equity is now 45.4 and theirs range is 54.6. I think he checks, So he's got 145 combos. And he's got 100% previous range. My river range is still 100%. I have 132 combos. So, got this sheet filled out for this hand, and now, if I go back and review this, in, let's say, 30 days, I can easily go back and see how I assign my range and perhaps how my range changes, or my assignment of the range changes. All right, so if you enjoy this, look tomorrow for another hand.